smile on my face, may not go my way. Still got my faith, so I'll be okay. I'll be okay.
All right, we're back. American Contractor Summit continues, and we have an amazing speaker coming up. One of my best friends in this industry. I've known this guy for a really, really long time, and it's actually kind of shocking that I haven't had him at one of these events yet. So I probably should apologize for that first off. But really, this guy knows roofing, understands construction, understands the trades better than probably any vendor I've ever met in my entire career here at since I've been in this space. We've traveled all over the country together. We've hung out with a lot of contractors. We have the same connections. I've been to his office. He's been here. We go way back. But I'm really excited that Michael Gogan is here. This dude is a legend in the space, and he's going to talk all about smart hiring. And I love this topic because one of the most challenging things that contractors have is, where do we find good people? How do we get them into the system? How do we align with their cultures, like some of the things that we just heard about? And Gogan's system is incredible, and this is going to revolutionize the way that you attract people and bring them into your business. So without further ado, Michael Gogan, thank you so much, my man.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Awesome. I think I got it. I'm ready to roll, John. So huge shout out to John, the AC team. Excited to be here. A few things for me. I'm just going to set the table. I'm a former educator. So by nature, I like to move around. I'm going to try to stay in my little box here, try to look at the cameras. I also, with that, love questions. I don't know that we'll get questions answered live. I don't know how much time I'm going to have, what that's going to look like, but ask them. We will make sure that even if I have to message you after the fact, I will get any and all questions answered. So those two things. Last thing is, I'm with HireBus, amazing, amazing software. I get into it a little bit at the end. I will dabble in it throughout. John was kind of hyping it up, which I really appreciate, but I'm not going to, come and sell you guys HireBus in this presentation. But what we are going to talk about is the people engine. And when you talk to contractors, so often they get stuck thinking that revenue is what I have to have in my business. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's extremely important. You do have to have revenue. And you have to have revenue to be able to afford the most important thing in your business, the people. The people are the most important thing in your business. I had a little story I was going to tell before I started. I'm going to pivot that. Monday night, it's Wednesday now for those of you obviously watching on rerun. It's Wednesday morning. I got a call from a client of ours, and they just use our DIY hiring. So they use our software to plug into their current hiring process. He said, Michael, I got a problem, or I got to get your opinion on something. I said, what's that? He said, I just interviewed a guy, 57. Resume is flawless. I was like, okay, keep going. Said he needs a job soon. He's in financial trouble. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what else did he tell you? He's like, well, he said how much he sells every year, how much he makes every year. And my gut says no. And I asked him, I said, hey, did you have them take the HireBus assessment? No, his resume was so good, I just brought him in. He skipped about 4 steps in his hiring process, jumped right into an interview, and his gut said no. And I said, if your gut says no, the answer is no. And he's like, yeah, but what if I'm passing on something great? And I said, you might be. But what if you're keeping something terrible out of your culture? And, what Adam just talked about, building that culture that is so paramount with hiring. You've got to make sure you keep the right people in, keep the bad people out. So I'm going to jump in here. What do we know? When we think about hiring in the trades, we know some things. We know there's a labor shortage. We know that there's not a ton of skilled trades workers. There's not a ton of people in the sales world that want to come and sell in the home service space, the roofing, the contracting space. It's tough. Okay. There are 440,000 home service contractor jobs open right now today. Obviously, that might have changed a little bit, but it's a huge number. And what they anticipate is 165,000 more open jobs added to that 440 year over year through 2030. You've got an extremely, extremely competitive space. You've got to dial in your hiring. You've got to get intelligent with it. And you've got to get to a point where you're able to attract, hire, and retain the top talent out there. Oops. We'll get better at this. This slide comes in weird. I'll apologize in advance. The rest of the slides all come in normal. When surveyed, this is what comes up. This is, a bunch of home service contractors were surveyed talking about hiring. 70% said, we have an extremely difficult time hiring. I would say they're probably pretty honest. 25% said, we're just not hiring currently. Maybe it's a company where they're looking to retire soon. And they said, we don't need to bring anyone in. Maybe it's, a young company that says, hey, I've got myself to sell. I've got myself to run production. I've got a crew that I can sub out to. I don't need to hire right now. 5% said they have no issues hiring. Staggering number, in my opinion. Only 5% of companies in the home service that were, surveyed with this said, I don't have any issue hiring. So it's a big problem. Let's dive into it. What is the cost when it comes to hiring? And I want to specifically have you think, what does a bad hire cost your business? I wish this was live and a bunch of people in the room and I could call on people, what's a bad hire cost? Here are the three that usually come up. Michael, it costs us money. We had to spend money on Indeed or ZipRecruiter to get those candidates in. We had to spend time interviewing them. We paid them 2 weeks of training before they left. It costs us money. It costs us that hiring time. It costs, your team that's going through, sifting through resumes. It costs your team that's doing the phone screens. It costs you booking final interviews. I talked to one of our clients the other day. They did 96 interviews, hired 6 sales reps. This was before they were our clients. 96 interviews, hired 6 sales reps. If your ratio is that high, you're not doing enough in the vetting process. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you should never have a 96-to-6 hire ratio. It should be about 2 to 4 interviews per hire if you're doing your process well. But 96-to-6, and he said, Michael, I was chasing down people just to get them to show up to interviews more than I was actually doing the interview. I was like, well, that's not good. So hiring time, training time. Am I investing in training my team? If it's a sales rep, am I, getting them up to speed? Am I just sending them out? Or maybe worse, am I just sending them on a ride along? Yeah, go run 3 appointments with John. John's our best guy here. Go run 3 appointments with John, and then tomorrow we'll send you out in a truck yourself to run appointments. Those are the things that come up generally. But they're not the most important things. These are the most important things when you think about, what does a bad hire cost me? A bad hire costs you wasted time hiring and then training the replacement, for sure. That's, kind of there. Lost productivity. So I have a bad hire, or like I often refer to them as a warm body hire. I need appointments run. I have all these appointments here. I need them run. I don't want to tell our potential client, no, somebody get a warm body in to run those. What does that, when they run them and they're not a good hire and they're not a good fit and they don't fit your brand and they don't sell, what does that cost you in terms of opportunity that you missed because you put the wrong person there? Or maybe it's production manager, maybe it's something like that, and you put them in the wrong seat and you're having to go back out and you're having to redo things or fix things. Those all stack up and add up. You have the additional recruiting and training costs. So if John didn't work out, I got to go hire Steve. Now I've got the exact same set of expenses. Okay, but these bottom 2 are what, in my opinion, are the most important. There's a negative impact on every opportunity, house, business, whatever it is, that you send a bad hire out to. What does that negative impact end up costing you? We can't really put a dollar figure to it, okay? And we'll talk about it here in a second in more in depth, but that impact is huge. And then finally, the most important thing, I said at the very beginning, your people are your most important thing in your business. It doesn't matter how much revenue you have. If you don't have a good culture and you don't have great people that love working there and want to stay, that revenue is just always going to feel like it potentially could fall away at any point in time. Great people will give you that security. And the wrong hire will lower your team morale. The wrong hire is going to take it to where you're not able to keep your best people because you brought the wrong person in. So I created 4 personas just for this presentation. Okay, these 4 personas, and we won't go super in depth with them, but you've probably all made these hires before. I've got Stick Around Steve. He's that warm body hire that, you know, nothing wrong with the person. You bring them in and they just kind of stick around. They don't do anything wrong to get fired. They don't quit. They're just there. You've got Culture Killer Carl. He's that expert. He's kind of the guy that I was talking about in that first story, that they know everything. They come in and they know how to do everything better than you're currently doing it. They kill the culture. You've got Job Hopper Jake. You're his 7th roofing company that he sold for in the last 4 years. And then you got Rep Wrecker Rob, the person that doesn't fit your brand, that doesn't represent your brand well. What do those cost you? Well, I made a quick little graph here for Stick Around Steve. Remember, Stick Around Steve, he's a great guy. He's a warm body hire. There's nothing wrong with him. You're not going to fire him. He's fine. But the problem is every appointment that he runs, he's not running it up to even average or best. So you've got those numbers in your business. If you have multiple sales reps, you've got your best rep, you've got the ability to create an average. When you're hiring, you need to bring them in and be able to have them at average or above average right away or very quickly. Stick Around Steve here. He's selling half of average and a quarter of what your best reps. I'm going to bet if you go look at your numbers right now, you've got a Stick Around Steve on staff. And I'm not saying go fire Stick Around Steve. Level Stick Around Steve up. Get him trained. Okay. Average ticket. We're not talking about crazy numbers here. These are probably, a little low for some spaces, a little high for some trades. I just grabbed random numbers, but average tickets there, they're not like, I'm not throwing crazy differences in. It's just, do they have the ability to upsell at that end of the job? And then it breaks down to a weekly revenue, which you can see there's some staggering numbers in the weekly revenue, but let's throw that into monthly, annual, and then what that looks like. Stick Around Steve, just compared to average, and remember, we're only talking 1.5 sales per week at a $12,500 average ticket. Stick Around Steve's costing you almost $600,000 a year in lost sales opportunity, costing you almost $2 million in terms of the best. So costing you a ton. How about Culture Killer Carl? Culture Killer Carl is super dangerous to have come into your business because you're not going to know right away that they're killing the culture. And you might not know until they drive one of your top reps to start looking elsewhere. And then in an exit interview, you say, well, what happened? You're our best rep. Man, Carl here, I couldn't deal with it. Culture Killer Carl is going to be the first one to kind of rally a subculture, which subcultures are obviously super dangerous in your business. Adam talked about culture. Not going to go too deep there. And they just create poor relationships internally, oftentimes from sales to production, or maybe Culture Killer came in on the production side of things and drives for poor relationships with your sales reps. So you've got to be aware of that. Not having a good process is going to get you a Culture Killer, Carl. I think this one's probably about as common in roofing as anything. Job Hopper Jake. When you look at their resume and you see that they've done all these jobs, you got to stop and ask yourself, I wonder why. They're going to have all the excuses in the book. Last guy didn't pay me commission. Person before that didn't have any leads. Person before that. They're going to have all the reasons why, but they've still jumped job to job to job. Like we talked about, that costs you when you have to replace them. It's going to cost you all that ad spend, all that time, all that interview time, all that training time. It also can lead some of your reps that are solid, maybe that average set of reps, to think, Well, if Jake's leaving, maybe the grass is greener over there. Maybe I should leave too. So it's a different feel than the culture killer Carl, but it can lead your reps to start questioning, am I at the place that I should be at? And it makes creating cohesion in your culture really tough, because if they're not sticking around, it's hard for them to get in and get a part of the team. And the last one is rep, record, Rob. And I just threw 5 images up here. Nextdoor, Facebook, Better Business, Google, different things. But the bad hires, whether that be sales, who are very customer centric, or even production managers, people that are dealing with your clients, running appointments, going out to try to close sales. Well, the bad hires, they may miss more frequently than your good sales reps. Okay, and that's costing you money right there. But if they're not representing your brand, and you just didn't send them through a good process, didn't put them through the onboarding like Adam was talking about, the training, you send them out and they run 5 appointments in a day. They run 3 appointments in a day, 10 in a week, whatever it is. And at every one of those appointments, they're not representing your brand the way you would want it to be represented. It's killing your reputation, all because you didn't have a smart hiring process. So all that to be said, smart hiring is kind of important. And that's really the only reason for those slides were to hopefully draw your attention to that there's more to bad hires than just the lost time in terms of interviewing, the lost, money in terms of wages. There's far more to it than just that. The reputation, the culture, the kind of the things you maybe don't think about, especially in the moment. We've all been there. I've got so many leads coming in. I don't have enough people to run those leads. I may have to tell people no, or not until next week, or we're 2 weeks out, or we're 3 weeks out. And that, as a business owner, that's a really hard thing to tell someone. It's really hard to swallow that. Like, man, that's revenue I could be having coming in today, potentially. And that's why you do have to have a process for smart hiring. But I also want to make sure, here I am talking about hiring, I want to make sure that I hit this, and I'm going to say this again. No hire is better than a bad hire. Not hiring anyone is better than a bad hire. You've got to stay away from the warm body hires. You've got to stay away from those question marks. I don't think this one's going to work out, but it'll at least get us by for 2 weeks, because getting you by for 2 weeks is costing you way more than you might think. So let's dive in. 6 steps to smart hiring. Step 1 is define the role and the ideal candidate persona. So I'm going to use ICP quite a bit. Ideal customer persona is what a lot of you would know that as. Ideal candidate persona. And right here is where I'm going to start with, you need to treat your hiring the same way you do sales. We all care a ton about sales. And I'm not saying you don't care about hiring, but we all care a ton about sales. We invest a ton of time. We invest a ton of energy. We invest in training. We invest in software and tools to make our sales process better. We care a ton. We have to have that same mindset when it comes to hiring. I am selling somebody on why they need to come and work for our company over someone else. And the people you want to hire are the ones that you're going to have to do a little bit of selling on. So keep that in mind, but define the role and the ICP. Write a detailed job description. I'm just going to say out loud my email address. It's just michael@hirebus.com. If you shoot me an email, I can send you a whole bunch of different canned job descriptions that we have tried and we have tested and we've used AI to get analytics on. I'm happy to send that to you, michael@hirebus.com. Just shoot me an email, say job descriptions, please. I'll have somebody on my team get those sent over. But you need to have a detailed job description. If you don't have one, shoot me that email. We can help you get one. You can, go use AI to, help you write some. But you really need to get a detailed job description. You need to then define the ideal candidate. So I have my detailed job description. What does the ideal candidate look like? Who is that ideal candidate? How do I get one like my top performer? What does that look like? again, I won't talk too much HireBus throughout this, but at HireBus, we allow you to use our right seat assessment tool. And I'll talk more about that in some of these other steps. But you can actually create a benchmark in HireBus that is your ideal candidate. Now I know what they look like. I know the traits of my best sales rep, and I want to go and find other candidates that mirror that. But you need to define what is my ideal candidate. Once I do, now I'm in a good spot. I know what the role is. I know what my ideal candidate is. Set my non-negotiables now. You have to set it now, or you're going to battle with yourself in a final interview if you say, man, I really didn't want to hire someone that fill in the blank. But if you don't have it set, and before you even start the interview or hiring process, it's going to be really hard when you get that candidate to final interview and you love everything about them except for that one thing. But that one thing, that one red flag or that one non-negotiable at final interview, sometimes you just, we can look past it, versus setting that up front and saying, hey, we can't look past this. These are the non-negotiables. And then finally, benchmark compensation and career pathing. And we can also help you with this as well. We can kind of give you some data. We can kind of show you how to lay out the career pathing. But that's super important, because when you're trying to bring someone in, maybe it's sales, maybe it's labor, maybe it's a production role, show them how much can they make today. Show them clearly how that works, but then show them what career progression looks like. What does the next level look like here at our company? And if you don't know that answer, like if you don't have, junior sales reps, senior sales reps, go and create that. Well, we bring everyone in at a junior sales rep. This is how that works. At this point, or at this milestone, you will then transition into a senior sales rep. What does that look like? That's what this looks like. Show them that they have something to look forward to. That will help some of those job hopper jakes stick around. Why does this matter? I think the biggest thing, and I'm going to say warm body hire probably another 5 times, but the biggest thing is a clear role definition, a clear ICP is going to help you avoid the warm body hires. If I know exactly what I need in this hire, I'm not going to hire a warm body because they don't fit exactly what I need. There was a study I found that 38% of bad hires were just hires made out of necessity. If any of you have heard me speak before, you may know I used to own a donut company in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm guilty of it. So this isn't something that's just in home services. This isn't something where I'm saying like, hey, I haven't made these mistakes. I made so many warm body hires. There was one time I vividly remember I didn't have anyone to flip the donuts. They're going to be going from 9 p.m. through the night. I wanted to be home with my family. I made a warm body hire. I knew it was a warm body hire. It wasn't good for my business. It wasn't good for the culture. I knew they weren't going to stick around, but I didn't have smart hiring. I didn't know the role definition. I didn't have my ICP. I wasn't proactive, made a bad hire. 38% of the bad hires you make are warm body. They're just made out of necessity. And clarity in your job description is going to make your ad more effective. If you're just saying, hey, I'm hiring sales, that's a lot. Having that clarity in there, making sure that you don't get to final interview if you're a commission only role and have them find out, hey, this is a commission only role. Making sure there's clarity throughout. The tech tip, leverage technology to help you define the role, build the job description, create the ICP page. HireBus, we create all of our clients an ideal candidate persona page. Helps them get people off of job boards, helps get people off of Facebook, wherever you're running your marketing to try to hire. We create you that page that is branded for your company, but it gets people there. They fill out what the non-negotiable questions would be. Can you do these things? Can you pass background check? Can you pass a drug screening? Do you have a valid driver's license? Whatever your non-negotiables are, they go through that before they even enter any part of your hiring process. Number 2, proactive sourcing. When you think about hiring, if you say, hey, I need to hire, and I need to hire soon, you're probably too late. You want to be proactively hiring. We encourage our clients to be hiring in some capacity year round. If it's a role that you have frequent turnover, which unfortunately in the trades, there's lots of turnover. If it's a role where you're continually growing and adding more, you need to be proactively hiring year round. You need to leverage multiple channels. You need to be building stuff on Facebook so that you can talk about your brand. I've got some content that we did with a few partners talking about your hiring brand versus your sales brand. Everybody's on Facebook talking about come get a roof inspection, come get an internal painting quote, come get your first yard free, whatever. We're marketing to sell. You need to also be thinking about sourcing. Being aware of that employer brand. Do you have an employer brand? The people you want to hire are going to see your ad. They're going to come to your site. And if there's nothing on your site about, what it's like working there, if they don't see anything on Facebook about, what you're doing in the community and all the fun stuff you do with your team, probably a good chance they're going to look elsewhere. Adam, who just spoke with Indy Roof, they do an amazing job of this. I'm not even from Indiana, and I see stuff that they're doing with their team. Aaron Christie, the owner there, I know he was looking for a chef one time. They were doing an offsite, and just little things like that. But that goes a long way when people are trying to decide, is that where I want to go and work? We call it a talent bench. But you need to be thinking, how do I build a bench of talent so that when I have a job hopper, Jake, or I have a culture killer, Carl, that I've got to get rid of, how do I get them replaced? Well, I've got a bench of talent. You need to be building that. It's okay to say, hey, unfortunately, we've filled this position. We do hire for this position frequently as we are a growing company. Is it okay if I put you on our list and give you a call back the next time we have this job open? We really enjoyed your interview. Build that bench of talent so that you can call on those people. And then finally, speed to candidate. Speed to lead, speed to lead, speed to lead. You hear it all the time. You guys preach it. I'm guessing most of you talk about that. Man, we need to be hitting our potential clients, almost instantly. When they fill out a form for a quote, we need to be getting in their inbox, shooting them a text, shooting them a call almost instantly. You have to hire in that same way. You're wanting the best of the best. And if you don't have a process that is going to take care of them, they're going to go find somebody that does, just like in sales. You say, hey, we need to get in front of the lead really fast because we don't want someone else to get in front of that lead. They're probably not just applying with your business. They're probably going out and applying to multiple businesses. You need to be the one that's first in their inbox, first on the phone, first in their text, and then all these other things we're going to talk about. But you got to be speed to candidate. Why does this matter? The candidates you want to hire, and I kind of alluded to this, the candidates you want to hire, everyone wants to hire. They're going to have plenty of opportunities. So when you think about this and hey, the people I want representing my brand, the people that have the most talent, they can go work almost anywhere. And so you need to make sure that you're proactively sourcing. Make sure that anytime you run in and cross somebody, maybe you're going through Chick-fil-A, maybe you're at a sporting event, and you talk to someone and you're like, man, what do you do? Oh, I'm this or I'm that. Talk to them. If you ever, and don't hard sell them, but if you're ever interested in a career change, would love to, send you through our process. Get creative with it, those kind of things. Proactive sourcing keeps you from warm bodies or fingers crossed hires. Again, like I said, 40% or 38% of bad hires are because you felt pressure to run appointments. I don't have somebody in my office to run these appointments right now. I just need a warm body or a fingers crossed hire. You've got to get warm body or finger crossed hires out of the equation. Proactive sourcing will do that. I threw this together. We take all of our HireBus clients through this, but you have reactive hiring and you have this hiring engine. Reactive hiring oftentimes gets you to one, and that's the warm body or the fingers crossed hiring. You say, well, I had 3 interviews today. Only one of you showed up. I guess you got the job. versus, this hiring engine where you have that ideal candidate persona and blueprint, and your ads are on point and you're getting a ton of, resumes in. You build out that top talent, talent bench, so that when the time comes for a sales rep or a production manager or whatever it is, you've got multiple people sitting there that you can reach out to. So just an illustration of that. The tech tip: use technology to always have hiring funnels running. I'll talk about how HireBus can help you with that towards the end. But even if you're not using HireBus, you need to just always be hiring or posting for jobs that have frequent turnover or that you usually have high demand for. Start with your sales rep ads year round. Start building that bench of talent. Teachers, they don't work in the summer. If you're a roofing contractor, I would be reaching out to local schools, showing them a 4-month program where they can come in and they can sell for 4 months for you. Maybe some stay for the long term and get out of the profession, but maybe it's just that quick, time fill for, hey, our busy season happens to coincide with your downtime. Let me bring you in. You can sell after school in May, and you can sell after school in August, and you can hit the ground running full time in June and July and help us run appointments. Get creative with that, but always be sourcing, and make sure you have automations in place, speed to lead. Make sure that when they come and they fill out your form on your website, make sure you're hitting them with an email response. Make sure you hit them with a text message. It doesn't have to be anything more than an automation, but that way they know, hey, they got this. I have a chance here with this particular company. That's what your hiring pipeline should look like. That's just a screen grab out of one of our accounts at HireBus, but that's what it should look like. Number 3, rigorous screening. You have to put them through a very rigorous process, especially before you get to final interview. That's what I was talking about on my call Monday when they called. He didn't do any rigorous screening. He looked at the resume. He got wound by a piece of paper, brought them in for an interview. He knew he messed up, and he just wanted me to tell him that. But rigorous screening. Resume and application screening, you've got to go through it, and you've got to go through it in depth. Is there anything that doesn't make sense? Is there anything that would be a red flag right away? If there is, they're just out. They're just out. And I know that in the immediate, hey, I need somebody today, it's really hard to just say they're out. I got their resume in. It's hard for me to push them off. That's why you've got to be hiring year round, because they just have to be out. Red flag. They've had 7 jobs in the last 5 years. I don't need to be number 8. Those kind of things. Phone screening, making sure that you're nailing the phone screening, making sure that you're on top of that before you bring them in for final interviews. Skills or knowledge assessments. Maybe you have them send you a video for sales. Maybe you do some of those things. Having a way to test, are they able to do this? Background checks and screenings, obviously that's up to you, state, those kind of things. And then culture fit and value screenings. Those are all things you can build into that ideal candidate persona, build into that careers page. Why this matters: prevents you from investing in unsuitable candidates. If you do this rigorous screening, okay, it's going to prevent you from investing in candidates that just aren't going to be a good fit for your business. Proper screening reduces the load on your team. You bring in somebody to run production or to do production and they're not a good fit, everyone else is going to feel that on your current team. You bring in a bad sales rep that doesn't tee up production well, everyone's going to feel that. You bring in a bad repair tech and they don't do a good job. Well, now you're back out and your sales rep feels it because they're going to get the call because they sold the job. And then you're going to have to send someone else out. So you just all feel that. And then finally, in the home service space, trust is a must. You have to have trust with your clients. You have to be able to show a level of competence with your clients, especially if you want repeat business, if you want referral business. And if you don't have the right people through that rigorous screening, that's not going to show through in your business. Remember, having to book out several weeks to run an appointment is still better than having the wrong person run the appointment. Told you I would say that probably multiple times, but just let that sink in. Having to book out several weeks is still far better than having the wrong person run the appointment now. 10 times out of 10, it's going to be better. It might not seem better in the short term, but in the big picture, that is going to be the win. The tech tip when it comes to rigorous screening, assessment tools to score candidates. I talked about the right seat assessment that we have at HireBus. You have someone take the assessment, takes about 10 minutes, spits out a score, scores them on inside sales, outside sales, production manager, office manager, CEO, COO, spits out roles that you have in your business. It doesn't have to be the HireBus assessment if you use DISC or some of those others. What I would encourage is that you just make sure you understand what those scores mean. What's great about the HireBus one is we spit it out right there in front of you for you. Inside, outside sales, they can go and run appointments. They can do all of the sales. Production manager, they're going to have the traits that you're looking for in a production manager. If you're a large enough company, we can build out custom benchmarks specifically to your business. And then leverage AI to analyze resumes. Generally, when I talk to one of our clients and they're on the DIY, so they just plug that assessment into their process, I always say, do you like and have a good process for screening your resumes? Do you have the ability to get through resumes? And oftentimes the answer is no. You can leverage AI to analyze those. HireBus will do that for you as well. This isn't actually John Dye, just had to put a number up there. John is going to take the assessment, but this is what it spits out. So this is for outside sales. You can see where they fit. Couple things, if you, at the end, you're going to be able to sign up and take the assessment as a business owner. Entrepreneurs score really, really poorly on a lot of these because they have traits down the middle here where they have to flex in and flex out of dominant traits and not dominant traits. But if I'm hiring an outside sales rep, they don't need to be flexing in and out. They need to be in that range all the time, and that's what it's going to spit out for you. Number 4, structured interviews. This is as important for you as the interviewer as it is for the interviewee and getting them to say yes, but you have to have a structured interview process. You can't go off the rails. Again, like I said, there's oftentimes you probably get to the interview part and you say, man, everything's great about this person except. And if that's one of your non-negotiables, A, they shouldn't have been in the interview, but maybe you find that out in the final interview. Still has to be a no. Consistent framework. Have that structured. Like I said, I was a former teacher. Parts of the education system I love, parts that I don't love. One thing the education system does really well is they do interviews very well, and they're very structured and consistent. You need to do the same thing in yours. You need to make sure you're pressing on the same, types of questions, those kind of things, so that you're getting a good feel for all the candidates. Involve the right people. If it's a sales role, obviously you need to have your sales manager there, but maybe you need to have your production manager there. Sales and production, they go hand in hand, So be thinking about that. Evaluate for culture fit and soft skills. You just got to get good at that. It's something you just got to be practicing, but you got to be thinking about it. Will this person represent our brand the way that I want it to be represented? As a business owner, that's paramount. Don't rush or skip steps. Come back to my buddy that called me Monday night, and I appreciate that he called me. If you're one of our clients, you can call me at any time. I'll talk through those things, but he rushed and skipped steps. He knew the answer, but he wanted to be potentially talked into saying yes, but he had rushed and skipped steps. And then finally used realistic job previews. Some roles it's not a big deal. But I've worked with a lot of concrete coating companies. Make sure they go out and see what the job's like. If they've never done it before and you're fine hiring that, which let me tell you, there's no issue at all hiring people that are outside of the industry. In fact, I would highly encourage that frequently. But make sure they go see a job site. Make sure they get on some of the machines. Maybe they get on a roof. Are you afraid of heights? No, I love roller coasters. Yeah, go climb that 30-foot ladder for the first time, okay? I didn't think I was afraid of heights until I climbed my first 30-foot ladder. I was with Paul Reed down in Arizona, and it was pretty easy going up and getting on the roof. And then when I had to swing my leg around, that wasn't the most comfortable thing I'd ever done. So I don't know that roofing sales is for me. But make sure you use those realistic job previews. Why does this matter? Again, all of this, like I can have the 6 steps and I can get you a copy of this, but the why this matters is really the most important thing. The structure helps surface bad traits so that you can kind of bubble those things up to the top and get rid of people throughout the process. I need to make sure that I have the right people in the right seat. And then it helps you avoid the traps of being wowed by the resume. It helps you avoid that, oh man, I don't know for sure, but I want to give this person a chance. Hey, your business is too valuable to be in I want to give this person a chance. I don't think I should hire them, but let me give them a chance. Now, if everything they do throughout is great, they don't have experience, that's where you give a chance. It's the guy that's been with 7 roofing companies and you buy all of their stories and you're like, yeah, let me give you the chance. Now, go find that green bean that's never done sales, that's maybe 24, hits all of the other boxes except for roofing experience. That's where you want to give your chances, So you got to be thinking about that instead of getting wowed by resumes. Tech tip, obviously, as easy as you can make this on the candidate, the better. Leverage technology to be scheduling your interviews for you. Make sure that, you have follow-up, those kind of things. Use technology for AI interview questions. HireBus has that built in. We're going to give you 10 AI interview questions on every job. Make sure you're using technology to do those things. Thoughtful selection. Let's see where I'm at for time here. I think I got to speed a little bit. Thoughtful selection. Gather team input. Check key requirements. Avoid hiring out of pure urgency. Don't make the warm body hires. Make sure you have competitive job offers and document the process. Why this matters, it ensures you don't make decisions out of urgency and drives confidence in top performing pros. I'll get to that in a second. Onboarding and training. I'm not going to go too deep into this because that is what Adam had. But make sure you have a great onboarding plan. Make sure you have great training in place. Why that matters, you can leverage tech. What's at stake? Well, your business is at stake here. You didn't invest in smart hiring, you're in a bad spot. The big 3, so if you have 3 takeaways from this presentation, stop rolling the dice on hires. Okay, get a process built to where you don't have to roll the dice. Have a clear plan throughout the entire process and be consistent and leverage technology. So HireBus, we have 3 tiers. DIY is our core. We fractionally recruit, that is software. And we have guaranteed hires, which is also software. Core, guaranteed hire, fractional recruiter. If you want to check out HireBus, we're launching full throttle, which is just amazing. HireBus.com/free trial. So go to HireBus.com/free trial. You can get signed up. We're going to give you 14 days free. You can do $499 for the first 4 months. Or if you want to do a demo, you can go right there, scan that QR code. That went fast.
Woke up today, smile on my face. May not go my way, still got my face, so I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'll be okay.